Hello, I'm Brad Kelly, and you're listening to Method and Madness. This is a show about books, the people who write them, and the labyrinth to be explored between the words.
Have you ever heard about Willie the Weeper? Had a job as a chimney sweeper. He had the dope habit and he had his bad. Listen while I tell you about a dream he had.
My guests today are Matt Fresta and Matt Sini of the Getting Lit podcast. If you haven't listened to Getting Lit, they're putting out premium conversations about books on the regular. You can start with a conversation we had last year on Gustav Meyrink's The Golem, which they suggested to me and I absolutely love. They've also got recent episodes on Roberto Bolaño's Antwerp and Eugene, there's no way I'm going to say this right, Eugene Vodalaskin's novel Loris. Okay,
you got the title wrong.
Enough.
I'd say more like Loris, that's how I said it.
I got the title.
Actually, no, Loris might be.
Of course. I put all that energy
it's derived
into
from Laurel.
Yeah.
Laurel. I don't know. Laurel Canyon, so maybe Loris.
I don't know. I put all the energy on the name and then get the title wrong, and that makes sense. Anyway, both of those are books I've been looking forward. I've been trying to read. I've been on my list for a long time, and I haven't gotten around to them. So I'm glad somebody's talking about them. So Matt, thanks for joining me. First of all, I really appreciate your time. I wanted to start by getting a little bit into the origin of Getting Lit. Where did this thing come from? Why did you guys do it, etc.?
Well, I started it.
Okay.
So I started it a few years ago, I think during the height of the pandemic. And I started it originally with two other hosts. Okay. So, and we just had a very sort of, my vision for it was a very kind of informal show about we just read books and talk about them. The kind of direction that we started with was really kind of about focusing on like the unloved transgressive books. So there was like in the first episode, actually, there's like this sort of like we each pick a story or a book or something that is transgressive in some way, like a little bit more hardcore, because I was feeling very like mainstream literature or whatever was very kind of at that time very milquetoast, very tame, aesthetically timid, I often call it. And there's still a bit of that these days, but it's obviously a very different formulation of that. So me, my co-hosts Rio and Ruben. Ruben was a sort of literary studies academic, and Rio was just a good time gal, another gay guy. And we just had like just informal chats about various different books from that sort of lens. And then eventually, I really wanted to do this like more regularly, but like their level of commitment sort of wasn't at the same, I guess I'm saying level again, but it wasn't at the same level as mine.
Yeah.
And so I just went off by myself and did it. And you would know this, Brad, that there are advantages and disadvantages to doing a podcast by yourself, because you don't have to rely on anyone else. And as rugged individualists that we are, we were like, that's good for us. But sometimes it's sort of like, sometimes you just want someone to bounce ideas off and stuff. So
I was just going to say that. Yeah, there's times where you're like, well, there's no one here to tell me if this idea is stupid or not.
Yeah, and I feel like such a moron just talking to the microphone by myself. Like if I'm not reading something, like reading a book, like doing a little, I like that you do like little audio short stories and things like that. That's cool. But just like monologuing, I feel like such a doofus doing that.
I started doing these AMAs for paid subscribers recently. It's just like you guys post questions and I'll answer them and I'll record it. And it does feel weird because I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any of the normal subtle conversational stuff to like tell me if it's time to move on or whatever. So I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. But you're right. Just talking into the mic is kind of weird. by myself in the basement, just like what
you ever try to just speak out loud when you're just completely alone in a house? Like you almost can't do it. I remember as a kid trying to do it, and it took me forever to be actually able to say a full word at full proper volume out loud, and you still have this feeling like someone's listening, but you know there's no one there. It's like a weird thing. You're like embarrassed if someone was listening, but the fact is no one is. So I guess if you're into a microphone, maybe you're like, well, someone will listen to this.
Right, but it still feels weird. It definitely feels weird. Yeah.
So, I was doing a lot of, when I was in that sort of solo period of the podcast, I was doing a lot of booking heaps of guests, and that was really good. I would occasionally do this, like the dreaded solo episode where I just monologued about something, but I don't think I'm very good at that. Like I actually love talking to people. So like, I'm just a better, I guess, interviewer and just shit talker essentially than a monologuer. So yeah, I was doing that for a while, and eventually has it been the last year, Fresta, that you've been second?
Like year and a half, maybe
longer. Year and a half. Yeah. So Fresta first came on. Was the first episode
Blood
we did
Meridian.
Blood Meridian?
Yeah, we did that, and
and we
Mad Dog Morgan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I listened to that.
Yeah, which is a cool Australian film, which you would actually like it, Brad, if you haven't seen it. You should check it out. It's got Dennis Hopper playing
I haven't seen
this
Mad
crazy
Dog
bushranger. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I love Dennis Hopper. Yeah. That sounds awesome.
So yeah, Fresta came off of that, and
so that's cool.
Sorry. No, and we just sort of
no, go ahead.
Yeah, just kind of vibed on that, and then I think we did a couple of other episodes where Fresta was the guest, and
you came to my house and we did that.
Eventually, this is sort of Fresta's. Yeah, we did an episode of the Kinks discography, which was really good because Fresta is like, it's his favorite band ever, and cool. So he was just like talking a lot. It was awesome. I got really into them too. Like they're really good.
They're a great band. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and just very literary too. Ray Davies has got a great literary mind, I think, for the lyrics and the references and all that sort of stuff. And and then eventually, I think I just asked you, why don't you just be co-host? Because you were thinking of doing a podcast, weren't you? Because I'll hand it off to you to sort of say where your trajectory, Fresta, when you came on board. Yeah, no, I was talking with Ryan Simone. We were considering doing a podcast, but then just because he's in America, so his time zones are already annoying enough, when you got to get like another guest or something. But we just kind of could never find a time to record, and I think he had a lot of stuff going on and was busy. And then Matt hit me up, and I was like, it makes way more sense to just do it with another Australian, so we're at least in the same time zone. And I'd been going on podcasts for a little while, so I was kind of comfortable podcasting, but I felt like I needed a home, so now I have one. And you kind of because he was doing a really great zine that was very popular worldwide. Several copies sold worldwide.
Hey, in the indie lit world, several copies is nothing to sneeze at. Yeah.
And so, and I remember
Rango Tango, right? That's the name of that. Yes. Okay. Yep.
And I remember, I think it was an early episode when you were officially co-host, and I was like, okay, so are you going to do another Rango Tango? Do you want to shill that on the podcast? And you were like, no, I'm a podcaster now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Found my calling.
Yeah, because the zine's so much energy and work to put out and stuff. Whereas a podcast, you just sit in front of the computer for a couple of hours and it's done. No editing. Well, I don't do the editing, so whereas a zine is tons of.
I don't either.
Zine is just constantly fuck, I made this mistake on that page, and then that fucks up 3 pages afterwards. Got to go back and I was doing it all stupidly, way too manual, and then my scanner, you had to. I couldn't figure out the settings, so I had to scan every page of the zine in all at once, and if you put one upside down and then the whole thing. I've eventually found tools where you could pull it apart and stitch it back together. So if I just wanted to replace one page, I could just redo that and scan it back in. But at the start, I was if I changed my mind on something or found a spelling error or something, that was but considerable enough to need to change it. Like it was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to sit there in front of the scanner for 45 minutes again.
Right. Oh man, yeah. I could feel that pain. I mean, I haven't done that specifically, but I've done enough like typesetting and stuff like that where it's just arduous and more detail oriented than I am like naturally inclined to be. So it's the whole thing is like exhausting.
Yeah, it's a young man's game.
Just checking
for sure.
every little thing. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's like a Fiverr project. You just want to like hire some Indian to do it or something.
What did I think of
that? It's like, well, that's cool. I mean, so I suspected this was the case. The beginning in COVID part of it. Because I actually think, I'm probably not the first person to say this. I would have rather we didn't have the whole COVID thing and all of the propaganda and all the BS and all. However, a bunch of cool, there was like a creative explosion that came out of that. I mean, I think if you look at, I don't know, if you sort of look at the most popular things in the world of podcasting and comedy, and maybe not so much things like film and but TV. I feel like a lot of good TV came out of that. I don't know. I think there was this. I think it did have this something about the pressure of it and the isolation of it and all of that. I think did actually lead to this cool creative energy that we're still kind of coasting on to a certain degree. No, hopefully we don't need, something else like that to kind of keep things going. But
yeah, there's a few podcast projects that are gone, like Tears in the Rain. That started in the podcast, but in that podcast sort of like explosion. But I'm just sort of happy that we're still going and like that, and it actually is a good sort of lesson that you should just keep going. Like even if you're tired, you don't want to do it, or even if the book's bad as well. Like if we do it, I'll still do an episode because at least that'll be funny. Like well, it depends how bad it is.
But
actually,
if you finish it, if it's
but
like not so bad that you can't finish it, then if you finish the book, you might as well like podcast about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
the more you do it, the more, I guess I wouldn't say we're wildly successful, but like, I mean, we have some kind of impact, and like we're randomly getting huge guests that I'd never expected we would get, that just they hit you up, like it's random. Like I mean,
you guys had David Mamet on for crying out loud.
And Bruce Wagner and
Bruce Wagner, right? Yeah, like what?
I was like so sure.
When I remember seeing you guys have David Mamet on,
I was so sure that like the morning of the
I saw you guys had David Mamet on, and I assumed it.
Sorry, I think there's like a lag or something.
We're stepping on each other.
I was just gonna say, like with the David Mamet episode,
Go
I was like so certain it was gonna be like, oh shit, like sorry, it's like his like his like agent or whatever, his assistant comes on and is like, sorry, we didn't realize this was like some fucking Australian podcast. We thought this was actually like gonna have millions of viewers. Sorry. False alarm.
Right. Sorry. Right. Well, I remember seeing it, in my feed, and I thought you guys were just talking about David Mamet, which was cool. Like, hey, not that many people talk about David Mamet. He's a brilliant guy. Like, awesome. And then I was like, oh shit, they're actually talking to him. Like, how did this? So that was cool. So yeah. So you definitely. I mean, that was awesome. And
I have no idea how it happened. I think if you just hang around long enough, that just people will come to you.
There's some truth to that for sure, but you're right about the sort of sticking to it, because I know when we were doing Art of Darkness, there was like the first year it was like almost nobody was listening, and then like the second year almost nobody was listening, and then sometime in the third year we suddenly like quadrupled in downloads. And I remember texting Kevin, like, because I got obsessive about the analytics, and I remember texting Kevin, I was like, I think there's something wrong. I think there's like a glitch here, because normally we got this and now we got this, And then the next day it was like, same thing. What the hell's going on here? And that was cool. I mean, you can definitely, you can definitely grow these things. There is a super competitive attention economy, though, right? I mean, there's so much stuff out there for people to listen to that it can be hard to kind of become conspicuous in that realm.
Yet there is hunger for this kind of content. Like,
Sure.
we our episodes are pretty much always over an hour. Like, so it's pretty in-depth discussion. But I mean, when I say that, I don't mean like it's not extremely academic. There's a lot of tangents. There's a lot of sort of impressionistic, vibes-based kind of book talk. But what you guys did on Art of Darkness, like you had like 5-hour episodes and stuff like that, and you were getting those sort of downloads. Like, so I think that speaks to like there is a hunger for this sort of like intellectually stimulating stuff that that people want as a break, perhaps, from all of the doom scrolling and all that stuff. Yeah,
for sure. And I think the thing that I started to realize about, well, I mean, you kind of put out the thing, I mean, it's a little bit cliche to say, but you kind of put out the thing that you sort of want to see, right? And, I kind of realized that there's a lot of people that are sort of like, well educated either by going through the school and academia, or just on their own are really well read and are smart and have digested a bunch of stuff and have thoughts on it. And a lot of the sort of mainstream stuff doesn't really appeal to them. There's not really a lot of good magazines for those people anymore. There's certainly not anything like on the television or whatever for them. And so there's a sort of wellspring of material that's sort of not ideologically captured, not like just there to promote the latest thing, whatever it is. And this maybe is where we can kind of transition to another thing that I want to talk about, which is the Australian scene when it comes to letters primarily. And maybe one place to start is, Matt, Sini, you were kind enough to send me links to a handful of essays related to this and a list of books, some of which I was familiar with, some of which I wasn't, that kind of relate to this whole Australia thing, what you guys got going on there. Not to say that it's some coherent univocal scene by any means, but as an American, it does seem like there's a disproportionate amount of activity coming from that part of the world, right? Like I feel like I interact with way more. For me, it's like Americans and then Australians seems to be my online friends.
Same.
It's very interesting. Nothing wrong with that, but it is like, well, where's everybody else? Where's all the English people? Like, where's even the Canadians? Like, where is everybody else? One of the articles you shared with me, which I think kind of ties to this, is your article basically about the end of, is it called Meanjin? How do you pronounce that journal? Meanjin. Right, and Meanjin. Tell us, maybe I'll just stumble through this. You actually know what Meanjin is. Tell us, what is Meanjin and what happened to that journal? Okay, so Meanjin it was a literary journal in Australia, sort of established in the early 1940s, so not post World War II. It was during the war, I think. It was established, and by this sort of like journalist, man of letters, kind of like, I don't know, Al Hazlitt, perhaps, like, I don't know, like so he wanted to have a space for, genuine like Australian stuff, because prior to this, Australia being a Commonwealth country was very tied to Britain. A lot of culture was imported from Britain, very much well into the 20th century. Like our public broadcaster, for instance, essentially just, there is Australian stuff, but even me and Fresta will remember all of the British shows that we saw because they would just import the BBC shows, right? Sure. So there's a lot of connection to the old country, right?
But this journal was sort of like trying to like establish an Australian literary identity, right? That was sort of based here, published people here. And at first it was based in Brisbane, which is actually where Fresta lives, which is what the name Meanjin means. It's an Aboriginal word for an area in Brisbane. So it was sort of like tying it to the ancient history of the country and like just trying to make it more of a national identity, literary identity, I guess.
Cool.
And so it was the foremost sort of like literary journal, and was previously in publication for that entire time, essentially. So, and published some of the, best writers like Patrick White, Gerald Murnane, and like people like that, and more. And so it was a real space for that sort of stuff. But it was cancelled essentially because where it was being housed and paid for by the University of Melbourne. So and there is speculation that it got cancelled, its funding got pulled because of many of its writers being critical of Israel. So it's that old chestnut, which we've
sure,
but
yeah,
that's not been confirmed or anything like that. I think it was. What the university said was that it was a purely financial decision because it wasn't really making any money.
Oh, because it probably was making tons of money in the past, right? A literary journal. I know that they're famous for raking
exactly.
it in.
Exactly. Yeah. But so it kind of just got pulled very unceremoniously. People were up in arms, and like there was all of these people who are very kind of like I would say ideologically on the left wing, like arts kind of people, were up in arms and were doing this weird thing that they often do in Australia. They might do it in the US, I don't know, when like cultural heritage comes up, when like suddenly they spend all of their time trashing the nation in which they live.
Right.
Its cultural output, its people, like they say unforgivably horrible things about their countrymen. And then they're like, oh, cultural vandalism. Like as if you care about this country's culture, What they actually care about is the funding spigot being turned off. So they won't get a nice juicy paycheck from that, like, I don't know, bit of personal essay that they're publishing in the latest Meanjin or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, so it was an important journal, but it has faded in its later years. It's just all like agitprop. And so I in this essay, I kind of suggest that perhaps it being mostly agitprop is why there was no one to defend it when the finances were on the line. So
and I think this is happening elsewhere too, because like in the United States, I don't know if it's the right comparison, but the first magazine that comes to mind, I thought of the New Yorker at first, but the New Yorker's got a bunch of other stuff in it. I feel like the Paris Review, I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, is probably maybe a closer comparison. And the Paris Review is now garbage as far as I can tell. And I would be a little bit bummed for it to just go away tomorrow, because I got a lot out of it. I mean, I still have half a shelf of the collected Paris Review interviews. They're great.
Oh, they're so good.
They're so good. And so it'd be a bummer for me for it to go away. But then also when I think about it, it's like, didn't it actually go away like 10 years ago already? And it's just, the name is just still kind of stumbling
like
along
now.
Yeah, exactly. Because every time I open it up, I'm like, what am I reading? I've got 12 people like in my emails that are better writers than anything I'm seeing in here, and none of those people will ever be in this magazine. So what's happening? But I totally do hear you that there is these sort of the hue and cry of cultural vandalism by people that don't seem to care about the culture one iota. It's a very strange phenomena to see. And also a lot of those people tend to not be people who actually make or do anything. It's just like, or maybe not even read Mianjin in this case, or the
Yeah.
Paris Review, they don't even actually like interact with the thing until you try and take it away, and it's like, oh, that's the most important thing that ever,
Yeah,
It's very,
but it's not
very
it's not
interesting.
just like a kind of like, oh, they're actually Philistines sort of thing. It's more that they kind of have this, when this happened, they had this like position that was in cultural nationalist terms. They're suddenly like blood and soil nationalists when it comes to like this literary journal being cancelled, like because they put it in those nation type terms, I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like, you're constantly like saying that this nation is illegitimate, and like suddenly you care about its like cultural output,
Right. Yeah, no respectable tradition on stolen land or something.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
That's really bad in Australia, by the way. I think
Is it?
Australia probably innovated the acknowledgement of country, or the land acknowledgement thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It was
it's
either
an
Australia or
interesting-
Canada who started it, I think.
Yeah. We have. I mean, we definitely have a little bit here. It's interesting. There was something not that long ago that indicated apparently the city of Boston is mostly like augmented shoreline. So it's like mostly been like soil basically dumped into the water to build the land up. And there was like some back and forth about like, well, we didn't really steal that part, did we? Like that's actually you
Kind of the
really-
opposite.
Yeah, there was no. Yeah, exactly. I thought that was pretty interesting. You just build a little plateau out into the water. You're like, well, yeah, nobody lived there. We're the first people to stand on this. Yeah, it's I think my first real interaction with something, it's technically not written by an Australian, but it felt like something deep about Australian culture, is Bruce Chatwin's Songlines. Is that book a big deal there? Do people read that?
Actually,
Do you
not
hear
really.
about
It
that?
is.
No?
Yeah, not
Okay, that's-
really. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I mean,
I kind of
this-
intuited this, that it was more for me and Americans and Europeans than it was for you guys. But it's a great book. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a similar book that J. David Osborne always goes on about that's a bit newer, called Sand Talk by Tyson Yunkaporta. And this is about like indigenous storytelling traditions and things like that. It's actually a pretty good book, but it's that, I think that has been more popular overseas as well. There's lots of stuff like that, like importing the Dreamtime to overseas, and rather than
Oh, so you
they're not
guys
big
don't
things
talk
here.
about the Dreamtime like all
Oh
the
yeah,
time,
yeah,
and
we
you're
do. We do.
living
We used to
in the
have
Dreamtime?
like we used to have like cultural weeks in school. Do you remember
Yeah,
that, Fresta?
I remember. That's mainly when I remember of Dreamtime was just
Yeah.
like they're telling us about the big snake or whatever, and I forget the details to be
Rainbow
honest.
Sister, right,
Yeah. That's actually, if you can see it, that's actually.
Oh
I think
yeah,
the dream
yeah,
snake
yeah.
right there. You probably
Yeah,
can't
cool.
tell.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
my-
no, it looks
in
like
my-
like
in
a-
this video.
Like a carpet snake or something.
Right. But I want to spend some time here talking about what is not Mianjin, what is the currently happening there. And you sent me a list of books and writers, and I'm just gonna read these off a little bit. I want to give these folks a shout out. Some of these people I'm familiar with, and some not so much. First, we've got Like You Have a Choice and The Swear Tax by Ivan Nikolai. We have Sleep Capricorn by Jack Norman, which I have a copy of. I have not yet bought yet. I'm hearing great things from various corners about that book. Spare Us Yet by Lucas Smith. We have The Last Free Man and The Everlasting, which I think both of those are short story collections by Lewis Woolston. The Stud by Liam Blackford, which is forthcoming. I think Book Club from Hell just had an episode on The Stud. I haven't listened to it yet. I think they just had Liam Blackford on. And Matt, of course, we've got your forthcoming novel, Magic Number. So why don't you, for a minute, let's talk about Magic Number. What is Magic Number?
Well, mine's unpublished, so it's currently
Yeah.
with the publisher. I don't know if what they're going to say, but
Okay, but I know you've got some excerpts that you've put on your Substack, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a kind of I don't know. I should work on the elevator pitch, but it's sort of like a satirical homosexual novel about three guys in a throuple. You know, a couple decides to open up their relationship to a demon twink, and not a literal demon. I mean the concept of a demon twink, it's just set in Melbourne here in Australia on the eve of the marriage equality sort of vote, which happened quite late in Australia. It happened in 2017, I think. So it's almost like a kind of a bit of a historical fiction in a way.
Sure.
But yeah, it's sort of, just a kind of, it's very satirical. It's very like not the kind of gay book that would be published in the mainstream because one, it's too masculine. There are no trans people in it. Everyone, like it's about like just guys. So that's probably why. And dudes being dudes, exactly. That's right. And like I've sent it to a couple of Australian publishers and agents and stuff like that. Got quite close, but I think because of the class background, and there's a sort of not to toot my own horn, but like there's an aesthetic timidity, I think, with the industry now. Like it's probably a little bit too much for them. But so I've looked elsewhere. So I'm the publisher it's currently being considered at is overseas. And this is the thing, a lot of these writers that we're talking about, where there's sort of like not, I wouldn't say that they're like persona non grata in Australia, but their audience, their publishers, is very much outside of the country. So this is a kind of scene that is weirdly of the country, but not like in it, if that makes sense. They're all very Australian writers, but we've kind of got to pursue these avenues outside of Australia, which is a weird situation.
Well, I think it might be a good time to bring up what happened to Jack Norman's what's the word for it, the book launch. Book launch. This is how the Australian public received him. So we did it at this pub in Melbourne, and this guy, because it was like a pub and it had like this sort of little room off the side where it had like little like leather couches and some stuff. And then when he starts reading or whatever, was about to start reading, this old burnout just rocks up and he starts playing the Pac-Man machine, but like with the volume like cranked fully loud. And he's just sitting there on his own, like wearing a backpack with a beer, just playing Pac-Man, like super loud. And we're all like, oh, is this like staged or something? And then one of Jack's friends just goes up and he's just like, oh, hey mate, do you want to just like give us some time to could you just like stop for a bit? And he was like, I've got a right to be here and stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, no one's disputing your right, but just like, read the room. And he's like, you leave the room and stuff. Anyway, so he just like plays Pac-Man the whole time. And then at some point, and Jack's like making light of it. He's just like, oh, thanks to the Pac-Man. That's great. And then at some point he gets up and he starts like standing there watching it. And I think like, oh, he's like getting into it. Like he's listening to Jack read the book. And then he laughed at like the word asshole or something like that. And then like at some point he just like scoffs at it and like walks off. Like, what the fuck is this bullshit?
Right. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
Right. Yeah. Is that like Australia's most normal book critic or something? Like that
guy. Would rather be playing Pac-Man than read your book. Yeah.
I only give it 1.5 waka wakas.
No. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. So, is there? This is maybe a hard question to ask or a hard question to answer, and maybe it's too much of a question because if I think of somebody asking it in the reverse, it'd be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But you said they're very Australian writers. This group of people. Oh, and one I also wanted to mention, Jack Cuthbertson, Jack BC, Book Club from Hell, friend of the show. He's got a book coming out, I think this fall, called Audience Capture, I believe is the name of it. So add that to the list. But when you say these are all Australian writers, what does that mean? Is it just that they people who, they live in Australia, or is there some common DNA to all of this?
I don't know. I'm trying to think yeah, I guess they're Australian. Like what you would probably if you envisage an Australian, what you would see, that kind of person. Like it's not I wouldn't say like it's not like cliche stuff like Crocodile Dundee or stuff like that,
course.
but like just regular Australian dudes. And I do acknowledge that these are all dudes. So we have yet to sort of welcome one of the female persuasion into this into this august company.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sure.
So that is a hard question. I would say just regular Australian guys who like we were saying before about like care about this stuff as well, like have a kind of passion for literature and books, and will the kind of people who will listen to a 5-hour episode on a writer, but also are really talented writers at the same time. I think for a lot of them there is a really strong sense of place. And Australia is a very peculiar place, not just flora and fauna, obviously, kangaroos and koalas and things like that, but just culturally it's a very peculiar place. And I feel a lot of writers to date, with few exceptions, haven't really like grappled with it in a really like extensive way. And I think a lot of these guys do, when they're writing about their place, or if they're not specifically writing about the place, it's definitely informed them. Like I feel like you mentioned Jack Cuthbertson. I feel like his like quirky sort of, it's not really specifically about Australia, but I kind of get the sense that it's been sort of forged by Australia, his outlook, So I don't know if you read his first novel, Tower. Like that's very.
I did, yeah. Yeah, and I think not that I was thinking about this like on every page or it was foremost in my mind, but I do think as I was reading it, there is like, well, this isn't an American book, at least. I wouldn't claim that I know enough about something Australia to note that aspect of it, but it definitely was like, yeah, I don't think an American would write this book exactly. And it's a great book. That's not a criticism by any means. It just does have there's something a little different in the perspective that I can't quite put my finger on. I think that it's actually good that all these writers can't be easily grouped aesthetically or subject matter or whatever, because I think you end up falling. Well, so like part of what you were talking about Meanjin and other magazines like that in other parts of the world, part of what took that down is this sort of current thing subscription, right? It's got to be you have to be on the same page on all of these sort of quote unquote political or cultural things, but that ends up leading to a kind of aesthetic sameness and a narrower range of things that people are even willing to talk about. And so that ends up being sort of its downfall. And so if your scene ends up being everybody saying the same thing, it loses a lot of its sort of life force. I know, like, on my side, I've gotten mostly friends that I've done podcasts with and people whose books I've recommended. I've gotten sort of coupled with some other writers, and I like all of them. I like all their work, but we don't have hardly anything in common as writers, really. When you like put the work side by side, they're just people who I respect, And I think if we were all doing the same thing, it would be weird, actually. It would be. So I think it's good that it doesn't have a single voice, and it's there's some texture there. I clipped a quote from an article or an essay, a Substack piece by Neo-Passéism, which is a name I've seen floating around a little bit, but I haven't totally dug into whoever that is stuff too deeply. But in his piece, he says, he's talking about Australia, we are a weird people in a weird land, perhaps because of this normiehood Perhaps because of this, normiehood is propagandized so forcefully. And I'm kind of wondering.
That was me, by the way.
That was you.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
right.
the
Sorry.
Neo-Passeism piece is a series of like what they do is they invite writers to like do entries and like collate them together when they have like so that one actually had a few of the names that you mentioned. So the first one in that the first entry is me. I think Liam Blackford's in it as well. So is Lucas Smith.
Ivan was in it too.
I can't remember who else is in it. Ivan was in it. So like, so that was me.
Okay, great. All right. Well, it's part that stuck out to me for sure. Yeah. I mean, this is where this is something that I feel as an American I relate to. Yeah, I think we're pretty propagandized here, but it does strike me that there is almost like the COVID thing, and I know COVID was. Maybe you guys will get canceled for me saying this in an interview with you, but like it was pretty draconian over there. Am I right, or is that just how we saw it from over here? It seemed like the COVID stuff was nuts in Australia.
Depended where you were to like a degree, but it was pretty.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, because in my state, it wasn't quite as bad as in Sini's state, like, but it wasn't, like, good. They still did all the lockdowns, and, like, a lot of people with their jobs got forced to take vaccines and stuff like that. I didn't. I just was like, I'll do it when they make me, and they never pointed a gun at my head or anything, so I got by. But, and also because I have a driving job, I got to, like, leave the house all the time, and it was kind of good because the roads were empty. But I hated wearing the fucking mask, and I'd always just I'd more like see it was kind of more like I felt like you probably felt like I would see all these videos of like police beating people for not wearing masks and crazy shit like that, but I never like saw anything in my actual life. But sometimes it would be like one really got to me because it was like it's literally like a 10-minute drive from here. It was these botanical gardens, and it was like some old dude who was like had a exemption apparently, but then like got harassed and like had like a stroke or something because of like the being harassed about like putting the mask on or something like that. And it was like his son's posting this video, and it got me all like really worked up. But then I started like getting like these crazy theories, like what if they just do that and they send the worst cop out on the day to like fuck with someone, and then they know there'll be a video, and then everyone else sees the video and they all comply. These are the theories I was coming up with. I have no idea if any of that's true, but that's just the shit when you're sitting in the house fucking getting like going crazy staring at your phone.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. No, we had some measure of there was all kinds of oddities that everybody kind of now pretends didn't happen, sort of, or wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, for sure. I guess I only bring that up not necessarily to like rehash what COVID was about, but it is an indicator, I think, of how propagandized a culture is, basically, like sort of how much did they sort of all fall in line with that, and how much did it all work, and how much did everybody sort of just sign up somehow, and you know, I think we definitely, and it varied quite a bit here regionally as well. You know, I went up to, there's a part in northern Michigan, way northern Michigan. If you look at the map, it's this little strip of land up in this huge lake up there. That's like another country. It's more like Alaska than it is like where I'm from. And I went up there during COVID, and everybody up there just thought it was like some silly thing that was happening down in the cities. And we're like, who cares? But I sort of bring all that up as, again, like, I kind of wonder, it is, I think sometimes that the sort of negative things happening in cultural space, whether that's like top-down governmental pressure, or it could be even like phenomena like war that's happening, things around you, economic collapse or whatever. I mean, I think those things are actually kind of good for creativity. Like, these things end up being like a pressure or a fuel for artists. And I do sometimes think that part of the American sort of cultural ossification, to the extent that we see it, is, and there's people doing incredible stuff too, it just largely goes uncommented on. I do sometimes wonder if that does come from like things are a little bit too easy. And I want things to be easy. Like, I want everybody to have a cool life. You know, ultimately, I want like good things to happen. But I do sometimes wonder if that can cause the art to kind of stagnate, and maybe something like COVID or similar events is kind of a shot in the arm culturally, at least in the grand scheme of things. So I don't know. I mean, I do wonder if this what us from outside of Australia are seeing as something happening there is like this creative spurt that comes from the pressure of COVID. I don't know if that makes any sense as a thesis.
Yeah, it could be, because I think all of this stuff, like, you know, some of it, like I started my writing career, such as it was, like before COVID, right? I actually published in MeAngin, like four times.
That's great.
So you know, but
this is the last good thing they had in there too.
That's right. Like, and so I sort of like. My attitude towards this is that a lot of people have not been let in, right, to those like institutions and stuff. Like, I've sort of made little forays like in earlier years because I'm old now. But once you're in, you're like, oh, is that all there is? Like, is that it? Like, you know, and it is. That's all it is. Like, and then you kind of see how the sausage is made, and you see how it's like kind of like very. Culturally barren and just really deficient aesthetically. And so I think that's why you have these kind of parallel sort of scenes and almost like an ecology of like art and media and stuff like that that's happening, because that there's still like some kind of will to like make that good shit happen, you know?
Right.
And it's got to be channeled somewhere, but it just can't be channeled through the institutions at the moment. So, and you know, when I say that like normiehood is propagandized, I mean that in the sense of art in Australia too, because the kind of, you know, mainstream institutional literature in Australia is very, very milquetoast, middlebrow. Like, it's very like, it's all realism all the time. Like, the only like stuff where you get a little bit of frisson is like in the crime stuff, and we have great crime writers like who often use the bush as a really like great sort of landscape. Ian Ryan, who you've had on, is amazing with like great. His Gold Coast crime stories, incredible. But like, just the kind of more literary stuff is just really kind of like it doesn't blow one's skirt up if you wear a skirt. So like, it doesn't have that X factor, you know. And the reason is because, like I was saying, there's a kind of, that's part of the propagandizing normiehood. You know, you don't want anything too wild. You don't want anything too weird, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So I did the whole I got a cursed MFA, right? I went through the graduate school of creative writing, went to a good program, et cetera, whatever. And I'm making a point with this. Two things I came out of there. One is you realize that the decision makers for all of this stuff, publishers, journals, programs, it's just a bunch of people sitting in a room. It's all it really is. So you can just make your own room and your own group of people sitting in that room.
Exactly.
It's all ultimately kind of the same thing. But the normiehood thing you're talking about, I'm not going to name names, but I will tell you, if I look at the year ahead of me that graduated, my year, and the year behind me, the people that graduated, and some of them may end up listening to this, I would say, if I were to pick like the 3 or 4 people who I've sort of seen out in the world since then, like seen them at their work at a bookstore or saw their credits in a TV show, they were, to me at the time when I was in the program, the least interesting writers that we had. I don't know what that means exactly, but like when I saw their names, I was like, why? How? Like, I was in 6 workshops with that person, and they never had a paragraph that I thought was interesting. Like, how do they have a career in television? This doesn't make any sense. So I think there is, like, to me that was like clear indication of what you're talking about. There's this sort of like, as long as they stay in the middle, sort of in the middle of what's acceptable aesthetically and creatively, and then they get a couple credentials along the way, then they're kind of golden. And yeah, so the creation of sort of parallel entities, other rooms to have other people sit in, seems essential to me. Unfortunately, we can't. The room I'm creating isn't all that well financed, unfortunately, but maybe we'll get there. Maybe we'll get there one day. Yeah.
And it's also now, it's sort of like all of these rooms that are kind of cropping up, including the Australian one, they're not physical rooms. So that there's advantages to that and there's disadvantages to that. There's trade-offs to that because, while we are all in the same country, with the exception of Jack, who kind of, I think lives in Europe part-time or America, like in Australia or something. Like we're all in different cities though. And Australia, like the US, is a very big country. So it's like we can't just drive and like go to the pub somewhere with every time someone's got a book launch or whatever. So.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine it is a big country for sure. I want to talk about. I want to sort of move over to. I think some of this will come up in this space, but it seems like a reasonable spot to transition. I wanted to talk about. Matt Sini, another Substack piece of yours that I really, really liked, and I like a lot of, I like all the Substack pieces I've read that you've written, but one that really, really grabbed me and was resonating with a lot of the things that I think about is your piece called "No Atheists in Plot Holes," and you and I were kind of emailing before this, and you indicated that this came out of. Essentially, you were trolling to begin with, which is where so much great stuff comes from. It begins as trolling or spite or whatever, or a dunk or whatever. But I think it started from a note: there is no such thing as an atheist fiction writer. I agree with that completely, but I'm curious if you could give us put some meat on those bones there. What is that? What do you mean by that?
Well, the piece was sort of like extending that, like, and I don't literally mean that if you don't believe in God, you can't, like, if you have an atheistic kind of position on the creator of the universe, you can't write fiction. What I mean is that you may not believe in like anything beyond the kind of material, or you might not believe in the transcendent or whatever, but even like writing your first word in any kind of like fictional narrative is proof that actually you do believe in something beyond that. So because, I think it's like, it is a troll because I just like put that out there on notes one day and got like heaps of hate. It was really funny. I actually love it. Like you cannot harm me. Like no weapon forged in hate can harm me. Like I love it. Give me more. So I just decided a few months later to kind of elaborate on that and what I actually meant. Like I was sort of half trolling and just to, because Substack is very, I find it's too chummy sometimes. So I wanted to like start some shit. So that's why I did that. But then when I wrote this, I was essentially saying that, you've got two options with the kind of atheist writer thing. Usually you've got the Dawkins type, right? Which is that, it's a purely scientific, rational view of the world. And then you've got the more, shall we say, continental, existential type, which is like, there is no meaning in the world. And actually, I felt that was more fruitful to go into and kind of critique, because the existentialists essentially say that, the world is like objectively meaningless, right? While writing novels, which are like objects of meaning. So it's like you're contradicting yourself essentially. And I think that, so that's essentially what I mean when I'm saying that like there's no
it's like if you believe there's no meaning, then
no,
like what does it matter if you convince anyone of your position?
No, exactly. I mean, I remember. I met Sini. I think I'm interpreting from your article that you at least had something like a Dawkins atheist phase.
Yeah, I did.
I certainly
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
I've
you?
read
Yeah.
the
Okay. And I think a lot of us.
Self-Esteem.
I think a lot of us did.
Some other books, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It's an alright
Yeah.
book.
And I was saying this. I was saying this. I was on Yerk's podcast, Bistro Californium, which is a great podcast.
It is, yeah.
Everyone should listen to. We're talking about Calvino, and I was saying this, how, Dawkins is not a bad writer. Like, I actually find he's quite a good writer. So he can very convincingly, like, put this stuff forward. But Dawkins doesn't write fiction, so, and I'm very specific about, like, fiction.
Yeah.
So, but I'm very specific when I say the fiction part of it, because
Sure.
the fiction
Yeah.
part is like there's it's like a cosmogony, like you're almost like a hierophant, like you're creating a world, and even if it's a very realistic world, there's a certain kind of like reinscription of the ritual kind of element to creation, that is not meaningless.
I think like Dawkins and
it's not
like Dawkins and Sam Harris and all those guys. They're kind of like, you don't need God to have meaning in the world. Like their whole point is, even like Sam Harris was trying to have some like morality system that is based on like whatever, I don't know, no God sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a math problem or something. Yeah.
And like so yeah, like those guys at least like aren't trying to deny meaning, but yeah, you're right, like they don't realize that they are kind of like anyway, I'm stepping on your point here that you're making better.
Yeah.
Oh, am I? I don't even know what point I was making.
Yeah, but I think I remember having, and I sort of got us into the Dawkins thing because I was I got big. I think I read most of what Dawkins had written up. The Selfish Gene, Extended Phenotype,
God
and
is Not Great,
Ancestor's Tale. Yeah, I didn't read God Is Not Great because I think at the time when it came out, I was like, I already know, like I'm already gonna know everything he's saying. I was very like, confident in my cosmological worldview. I was like, I don't need it. I already know. But yeah, that book was kind of it was crazy. But I remember, eventually working my way out of that phase, and I want to ask you guys about that. And then talking to somebody who was, I part of my professional life is in the engineering world, and most of those people are atheists, right? And there's a lot of great, smart people in that world. But I remember having a conversation with somebody and kind of realizing, like, oh, the real difference between us, we can talk about believing in God or whatever, but the real difference is I think that things mean things and you don't. Like, I think there is such a thing as meaning, and this person I was talking to really kind of doesn't. Not in any real way, right? A word can mean something in the dictionary, but beyond that, like, there isn't really that much
Well, they think it's
meaning.
like some kind of like emergent phenomena that's like created accidentally, just randomly, whereas we think maybe it's sort of like it's actually part of the substrate of the universe. Right. Yeah, that's kind of how I think. Like, when I come across something that feels like it has meaning, it's like I'm getting a glimpse into some larger pattern that's holding everything together, that's mostly ineffable, and but occasionally get to see a bit of it or make contact with it or something. I am curious, if this isn't too personal, how did you guys get out of Dawkins' atheism? Do you want to go first?
Is it like a moment, or yeah?
I actually can't remember. I think just reading more, like just reading, just reading more thinkers, because and also because I've always been more interested in literature and art and stuff. So you kind of go into that and you see that's kind of like a little bit, it doesn't have much to say. I know like there's some books that try to approximate some kind of like evo-psych view on literature and meaning and stuff like that. What was that book called by Jonathan Gottschall? Do you remember?
Yeah, the storytelling animal. I
That's
think, or
right,
something like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So this
and I
idea
read that
that's-
too. I vibed
Yeah.
with that part because I had a whole Evo psych literature phase as well.
Yeah. But again, that's a sort of it's essentially the same thing that Fresta was saying before. Like it's an emergent property, and just in the Evo psych position, it's kind of like more that property evolved over generations or whatever, that it became beneficial to tell each other's stories as in small human social groups, because that would teach us lessons and stuff like, and that is just a complete, that's a view of literature that I absolutely despise. So I think maybe that got me out of it, because I don't like imparting lessons literature. Like I don't like that view of it. Like so the didactic view. And I think in a lot of these attempts to shoehorn the materialist, the Evo psych kind of perspective onto art, there's a lot of things that are implicit in it, like that they're just, for instance, in that case, the moral lessons or whatever, that is just rehashing didacticism, like that's what good literature has to be, which is like, that's fine if you think that, but I don't think that. So like that was part of it, I think. Yeah,
it's like a 5-year, it's like designing, like it's like literature's meant for 5-year-olds or something.
Yes.
It's like which you do, it is handy to have like a good little fable to tell a small child to explain why they should share their toys or whatever. Like those are useful stories, but to then expand that into some kind of meta theory about why we're doing all this is kind of ridiculous. I tend to think of the Evo psych stuff as not so much like wrong as like a very like a perspective with limited utility. It's just sort of like it can sort of explain parts of why some certain things might be the way that they are, but ultimately it doesn't really tell you all that much. I mean, I think Evo psych in general is kind of like this, where it's like you come up with an evolutionary adaptive reason why people are a certain way, and it's like it's not that it's 100% wrong. It's just there's not that much to do with that information. It doesn't really help you in any way. And then it does the typical sort of, shape rotator thing of being like, I came up with an interpretation that seems correct, so there's nothing else. There can't be anything else outside of that interpretation that could possibly be going on. It's a very
and
annoying.
that's what's good about fiction, is that it snaps you out of that, because it gives you, like, I don't want to say the people often go to empathy, and that's not what I mean, but like it will give you a sort of different life worlds, different kind of like perspectives on living life, on meaning, on all this sort of stuff that will break you out of that very narrow worldview that you might have, and sometimes strengthen it, sometimes like supplement it in other ways. And while I say that with a caveat that I also don't view literature in an instrumental way at all. So like it's not read this to max your stats in that or whatever. Like
no, I'm so glad you say that.
It's just a soul nourishing thing.
I'm so glad you say that. I mean, I feel very much the same way, because you'll see stuff that's like on the internet, like people trying to tell you what the point of it is, of like literature or writing or books or whatever, or art generally is, like what the point of it is. And to me, it's always like, it's its own point. That's kind of the way I see it. Like why are you trying to come up with some like LinkedIn corporate speak reason why this thing exists when it's older? It's older than everything else we do, really. Like if you take art as a whole, like creative expression for the purpose of being interacted with by another person, like it's literally older. They always say the oldest profession is prostitution. I think like making music is probably older than that. So to kind of come up with some new sort of secular stripped down version of stat maxing or whatever is kind of silly. Now, at the same time, like people have gone into the arts to get laid. Like that is like, that would be like an Evo psych explanation for why it exists, right? But that doesn't tell us why it works to get laid, right? Like, it's like, okay, you learn to play the guitar, your chances of getting laid go way up. But why? Why would that help? Nobody's ever really given that good of an explanation for that part of it, right? So, anyway, yeah, those scientific explanations for this stuff leave a lot to be desired, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, maybe it's like you're able to...
Fresta, I don't want to trap...
I was going to say, like, to expand on what you're saying, like, it's like someone can play the guitar. It's like they can express their soul, you know what I mean? And then the female is attracted to that. But what's the evolutionary advantage to someone being able to express what's in their soul if the soul doesn't exist?
Right.
You know, and maybe you could think that through further and get out of the mess there. But yeah. Anyway, you were going to ask me how I lost my atheism. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, if you don't mind. I mean, I know it can be a kind of a private thing, so I'm not trying to like put you on the spot totally. But I'm curious. About
see if I can just remember how.
Yeah,
we're podcasters, Brad.
I know that's my attitude on it, but
I was like, well, I remember how I became an atheist when I was like, because I went to like Catholic schools and my grandparents were quite religious, and I just believed until I was about 15. And then I think I was having some doubts. And then I remember talking to this girl and she was like, said her granddad was like, didn't believe in God. And I was like, what? An old person doesn't believe in God? I just thought every old person believed in God. And so I was like, oh, well, if he can do it, anyone can. And then at the same time, I was just like, there were certain rules that I'd become aware of in the faith that like, you know, I wanted to break and didn't want to have to feel bad about. So that made that easy. And then it just sort of felt like an edgy position to be in. And you go to like a party and you're like, oh, you think Sky Daddy's real? Well, what about logic? You know.
Right.
So
right.
I remembered that. And then I was like, that was like when I was 15. And I was sort of at first just like, oh yeah, I don't believe. And then at some point I read the books and became a little bit more annoying and militant. Not militant, but you know what I mean? Just as like probably, and I'd like, if I was like, could go back as a fly on the wall, I'd be just cringing listening to the shit I would have heard myself say drunk at parties, acting smart. But then when I was about 30, I just like, I don't know, like it all flipped on me. Like I think I just, it was also like sort of around the same time my politics drifted away from the left kind of thing, and I think it was like I was listening to like Sam Harris's podcast and stuff like that, like back in, and then he had like Jordan Peterson on, and Peterson, like at first I didn't want to like him, but then I was like, yeah, he's got some interesting arguments. And I think it was sort of even just like that people, like he had some argument along the lines of that, like even if God's not real, people who believe in God tend to be just like happier and stuff like that. And so I think I sort of like tricked myself into it that way, sort of being like, I'll give it a go. And then I was like getting into his stuff, and then it sort of through that like had experiences that made me like more, you know what I mean? I don't think I'll ever be like able to like 100% believe in God or anything unless something really crazy happens. But like, you know what I mean? That's what faith is, that you like, you still persist regardless. And yeah, like I just had like experiences of like one time just like sitting in the bathtub like praying to God and like apologizing for being an atheist, and then having like just like incredible just like wave of emotions like I'd never experienced before. Like, and again that's not proof of God or anything, but like, you know, I know what I felt. And I've had other like mystical experiences that have like demonstrated to me that I think there's something more than just material reality. And I was baptized a Catholic, so why not? I'll just be that.
I was baptized.
That's how they keep us. That's how they keep us, Fresta. Like,
Matt, you raised a Catholic as well?
Oh yeah. Well, kind of very lax.
Okay.
Right? Like we weren't.
Yeah. Well, that makes
we
three
went
of
to
us.
mass sometimes, like at Christmas and Easter. But you know, I go to mass more now. Like but I still just go at Christmas and Easter. But but like what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, that I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but like if you've been baptized in the Catholic Church, they still have you somewhere on the books. And if you want to like get out, you have to like, you know, write a letter to the Pope or something to get off their books.
Yeah, that's like an atheist
That's what I've
thing
heard
they'll do.
anyway.
They'll be like,
I
I
think
sent my
I've heard
letter to
that
the
same
Pope.
thing.
I'm being excommunicated. I'm excommunicating myself.
Right. Like, oh wow, great,
Yeah.
you win. I guess. Like it's such a yeah. That's the thing. You kind of realize at some point. It's just like the Reddit type atheists, and this isn't true. I think there are very sophisticated, intelligent, thoughtful people that ultimately will put themselves in the atheist category. But like this sort of Reddit version of it is very cringe. It's very just like. Yeah, just attacks like the most simplistic. The theology is very weak amongst those folks, and it doesn't seem like they've actually like dealt with it. And I say this because I was one of them. I mean, I was raised Catholic too, and I think in retrospect, definitely haven't gone through the sort of Dawkins rational materialist sort of phase. I actually think that phase was really crucial for me because it gave me, first of all, it like I said, I have an engineering degree and I've worked in that world for a long time. So it did like sort of strengthen that rational part of my brain, which I think has actually allowed me to get a more sophisticated perspective on some things going forward. Like it allowed me to push myself far enough away from like my Catholic upbringing that I felt like I could see some stuff clearly. And then eventually as I got out into that terrain, I started being like, oh, there was actually a lot of things that were valuable about that perspective I'm trying to abandon, you know? And then in addition to that, my biggest breaking point, I'm vibing with you on two things, or one thing at least, Fresta. Jordan Peterson was actually kind of instrumental in thinking about this stuff to a certain degree. And I mean, I know he's sort of like outmoded now and everybody just wants to like pile on him, but I don't know. I mean, the guy was saying a lot of stuff that people could hear. It's not like he was the first person to ever say really any of the stuff he was saying, but he was putting it forward in a way that guys like you and I, somehow we were able to hear it when he said it, and maybe we couldn't hear it when anybody else said it. And I think that's important. And then on top of that, I just had a mind-melting psilocybin mushroom experience that basically it came out of that and was like, yeah, if you're an atheist after that, you weren't paying attention, man. Like there is something going on out there, and I don't pretend to understand it, but after that, we're sort of in a world haunted by entities and meaning and dimensions and layers that I still don't fully understand, but I accept that it's there, and I'll, be trying to figure it out for, the rest of my life.
I had an acid trip where I had achieved the like complete ego death long time ago. I was like 21, I think. And I was an atheist at the time, but I met Shiva on that trip. And I didn't know who Shiva was before that, though. I'd never heard of it. And so I just remember like having the full ego death, and then like my eyes would be open, but I'm not seeing anything of reality. It's just in the trip land. And then it was just like Shiva sitting there with like the arms, and it was like 4 panes, and they were like bright orange in the 2 corners and then bright blue in other 2 corners, and like Shiva would, I think it's a he, right? Shiva, but it looked like a female, and like move the arms, and like it would like create like this kind of like movement of like, the liquid in these panes like would move through this, but it would all eventually like even out, and it was like symbolic of how like, I guess karma or whatever, like that it all balances out in the end and something. But then, like, I was like, whoa, was that like Ganesh or something? Like, I had to. It wasn't until years later I found out it was Shiva. But then, like, heard other people's experiences of talking with Shiva, and they would say things like, "Yeah, you can ask them any question, and they'll tell you the answer." And it was like that. Like, you ask questions about yourself and stuff like that, and like you would just get an immediate answer. And in my time, I was like, my materialistic young self was just like, well, I'm just communicating with my like subconscious, which is just a epiphenomena, blah blah blah, like some shit like that. So I didn't really realize how important it wasn't until years later, like finding out like other people having like very similar like experiences and describing it that way. And again, which could be just brain chemistry that we all have the same of, but like I didn't know who Shiva was is the freaky part. Like it wasn't like I'd you know what I mean? Like
Right.
had that image in my brain already.
Yeah, you hadn't like primed the pump to see this, right? It was well, check.
So I guess I
checkmate,
should be a Hindu
Richard
then, right?
Dawkins, deal with that.
I don't want to either.
You got to get into that Ganges.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Get your shots before you do that, right? I guess. Yeah,
This is,
so,
by the way, this is very like a glass outdoor table, like comparing trips right now. I love it. it.
Yeah. Well, I can fall into that territory from time to time, but you know, I don't think I'm clearly not the only person. There is a way, I think, in which for modern people, like modern guys who've kind of grown up in this sort of rational capitalist system, and I don't mean capitalist in this like in necessarily a negative way, just sort of describing the spreadsheet nature of modern life. I do think for some of us, the only way to like kick us back into a terrain in which we can have spiritual experiences is psychedelics. I think there are other ways. I think there are other ways to do it, but I had maybe revealing too much here, but I don't really care. I mean, I've had a bunch of ayahuasca experiences, and I had one that was excuse me, very intense, very difficult, and the guy who was running it afterwards was like, I was like, why was it so insane? Like, I'm struggling. I literally felt like I lost my mind, and it was tough. And the guy said to me something he was like, yeah, man, your brain, you kind of turned it into, I don't remember how he described it, but his basic description was like, you've turned into like, what was the word he used? It's something like, my interpretation of it is like, you've turned yourself into like a brick. Everything is solid and has firm edges, and everything is like geometrically explained. And we're trying to loosen that up. And it's kind of hard. You got to take some whacks at it with a sledgehammer, because how else are we going to undo 20, 30 years of conditioning, to get you to move a little bit, philosophically speaking, even. So I think there's probably a lot of people out there who were some kind of Dawkins type atheist, had some weird experience, one kind or another, and then on the other end of it, at least came out being like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. Something's happening. Yeah. And I think, kind of tying this back to Matt Sini, you're no atheist in plot holes. I think there's a couple of ways to, I can see why a person who is an atheist would balk at that and be like, well, I write stuff and blah, 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 blah. I wonder, and we'll kind of maybe use this as our sort of last sort of discussion point, because I'm curious what you guys think of this. Okay, so I agree with you, Matt. No atheists in plot holes. Fundamentally, somebody who's making the leap of faith to try and write down a story that sort of just seems to be just coming to them. There is some measure of faith there in that simple process, no matter what stated beliefs they have. But there's also this other thing, which I don't think they're unrelated, and we see this all the time now, in which there's a constant debate about all art is political versus art can have political stuff in it if it wants to, kind of thing. And I sometimes feel like the all art is political types are betraying themselves by basically saying that when they say that all art is political, what they're suggesting is that to them, like, the current thing, political discourse, is in place of, for lack of a better word, of God. So to me, I'm like, all works of art are somehow about the divine in one way or the other, even if it's way downstream and several steps removed. They're ultimately somehow about the divine in some way, even if it's just about the writer's contact with the divine, whatever. Whereas the all art is political people are sort of saying, no, it's all politics, because to them that's the top of their hierarchy. And I'm just curious, does what I'm saying make any sense? Is that like...
No, I get what you mean, and
okay.
that I'm a big I hate the all art is political people as well, because like
Yeah.
what they're saying, what they're trying to present themselves as saying is that, you know, things that happen in books, the book itself, like the distribution of the book, how it was made, all have some kind of political valence. I'm right. All right, sure. Okay.
Yeah, they're not even wrong, like, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but it's just like, that is not, that doesn't, you can't reduce the story to that. Like, that's one element of something in a, like, one corner of your experience of this book that you might want to talk about if it's relevant. But even, but that's, it's a salience question too. Like, is that relevant to like the interpretation or your enjoyment or appreciation of the book? But when you say the current thing, a good example of this that people would probably like gesture towards, the historical example, would be someone like Dostoevsky, who we recently did a 3-part series on Demons, which is a great book. But he puts in the current things of his time, right? Like, the Demons is about it's a fictionalized version of a real kind of like extremist murder that happened. And it's like, but like, you can't reduce it to that thing and what he thinks politically about that event, because the way that he writes about it is that it's like a constellation of things around that event, right? And the constellation is the point, not the political valence of that thing. It's operative in the story somewhere, but it's not the point, you know? So I think that's what, like, you can use current thing in a way that like gestures towards these higher themes, but that's not what these people are doing when they justify writing their, I don't know, trad wife novel or something like that. This is really current, and like people are going to read this like in 100 years. No, they won't.
See, their art is all political.
And go ahead.
So they got the thing backwards, you know. You can say everything is politics because politics deals with life or whatever, but it's not like every word of the Dostoevsky novel is politics. But for these people who say that, generally all they make is like, you know, like someone raising their fist with like some women and whatever, hijabs, like you know, doing some shit. Like
yeah, I know. I totally agree. Well, and then if you were asked, you know, the people who make that statement, sort of what do they mean by political, it usually kind of washes out in some definition that like it's just about everything somehow. It becomes this like sort of this circular logic where it's like all art is political. Okay, well, what's politics? And then there's a bunch of hemming and hawing and kind of over here, over there. They reference somebody, and then ultimately you realize like, oh, they just mean everything. It's like saying, like, it's like a replacement for life or something. It's just, and then it's ultimately like, well, then it's a meaningless statement, because you're basically saying it's like all art is about everything or something. It doesn't. It ends up not meaning anything.
Make like a finger
when
painting.
you really try to pin them down.
Paint costs money, and economics is politics.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And it ultimately ends up being like and then what they sort of mean, but they won't say it, is like, no, like all art is essentially like propaganda for the Democratic Party. Like that's or not. It's either is or it isn't, and that's how we're evaluating it. And it's like
it's
it
lack
just
of
gets
politics
it's so
actually
obnoxious.
makes it even more political, you know, like by not including politics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How privileged are you that you don't have to think about politics 100% of the time?
Some of us don't have that choice.
That's such a
we don't have that
privilege.
luxury.
It's like, like, yeah, you do. Trust me, you do, because you could just not. You could just play a video game or something. You don't have to. Yeah, for real.
Yeah, but it's this style of criticism that is. It's not just, that's one version of it. The other version of it is like, you know, looking at the problematic nature of the author themselves. Like it's this like latter-day style of criticism that is constantly just looking for faults in the work. And I actually think that, we can do a bit better than that. Like, you can talk about the politics of a book, like, if you want, but do it in an intelligent way, and and not like, I'm actually really sick of criticism that's like, this was good, this was bad, and it's just like, and it was okay. Like, and it's sort of like criticism that just balances this stuff, and it's just like, maybe just talk about other stuff, and like, it doesn't always have to be a thing about this is really good or this is really bad. And also, if you're going to do that, it doesn't have to be about like things that are almost irrelevant to the thing itself. Like, why does it always have to be about politics,
Right.
Yeah.
Come up with something else, another area of interest, just something else that interests you.
It's the red penification of literary criticism, it's just like, how about being a little bit more attuned to what the thing is doing? And even if the person has some like politics that are completely opposite to yours, like, read it with a sense of generosity. I mean, I think that's what we all do. Like, Fresta's just finished reading A Literal Communist. Both of us don't like communists.
It's a great book.
Oil,
it's the second time
by
I read
Upton
it.
Sinclair.
I love it.
Yeah. We don't have a problem with people with oppositional politics to us.
Oh, there's some great stuff made by communists. For sure. Yeah.
Nothing political, but
No,
Celine
I think
is from the other side of the coin. Celine is great too. So,
Yes. No, and I think this is a great spot to kind of end. This is part of the reason. I mean, you're circling part of the reason why I like Getting Lit, and I like a handful of these other podcasts that sort of, we're all guests on each other's show from time to time. Gain of Fiction, Book Club from Hell, it's kind of going beyond not only beyond the all art is political and let's red pen this, but also going beyond the just like, this is good, this is bad, this is in the middle, this is the best, this is the worst, and really trying to use these books as things in and of themselves to think about and talk about, but also like what beyond, using them as a springboard to kind of get into territories beyond them, which is what has always been exciting to me about literature. Is I can, if we've all read the same book and thought carefully about it, we can get into some very interesting places conversationally that we couldn't otherwise. And so, I would love to do this for another hour, but unfortunately I am running out of time, which is unfortunate. But we'll have to talk again soon. I guess real quick, is there anything coming up on Getting Lit podcast? Any new episodes coming up that people should look forward to? Obviously, dive into the archive, but.
Well, we're doing a very special 2-parter episode, which is keeping on the Australian theme here. We're doing a 2-part episode on all of the Mad Max films.
Hell yeah.
Fun.
Hell yeah. I love those movies.
So, yeah, I do too.
Excellent.
The first, I've just started watching the first one, and it's such a weird movie. Like, hardly anyone's seen the first one, but everyone sees The Road Warrior, and that's where a lot of people start. But the first one is a very strange movie.
I've seen it. Is that the one with the kid in the helicopter, or is that the second one?
Yeah.
That's
third,
the
is it?
third one, I think.
Yeah.
With the helicopter. The third one's the helicopter.
The first one is
with
almost
Tina Turner.
Yeah. The first one's almost like realist. Like it's almost it's almost like a realistic. I mean, they made it for like $50,000 probably. It's
when connecting back to the Meangan stuff, the mechanic area with those arches, that is a car park at the University of Melbourne.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you can learn a little bit about Australia by watching Mad
Yeah.
Max. Yeah, as well. Yeah. It's just like that, right? It's a documentary. Yeah.
Right.
Well, well, I really, really do appreciate you making the time to come talk to me. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to talking to you again. We'll talk about that behind the scenes. And yeah, folks, you can find links to both of the Matts. They're writing. Matt Fresta, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but he's got some great short stories that he linked to me. Dark, funny stuff that on Apocalypse Confidential, another friend of the show. So definitely check those out. I'll have links to those in the show notes. Plus all of the Matt Sini's articles we mentioned. Plus, obviously, you'll be able to get to the Getting Lit podcast there. And all right, thanks everybody. See you on the next one.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Of course, yeah.